Right, Roger. For film marketing, I think we might be talking about the best Christmas movie ever.
The best Christmas movie ever. And that is Die Hard. And I know there'll be a lot of people out there saying, no, it's not a Christmas movie. But I am in the Christmas movie camp. And what I'd like to resurrect this debate. A lot of people say Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I think it is a Christmas movie. Please, if you're listening to the show or watching the show, tell us in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter or wherever you consume your podcast. Tell us, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or isn't it?
Excellent. So a movie that was released in 1988, Roger. Interestingly, I personally saw it a year later on VHS cassette. I didn't go to the movies. Did you see it at the movies by any chance?
I did.
Right.
I did.
Wow.
And do you know, Pascal, it's one of the only movies, I think probably other than Star Wars, where I've gone and seen it again within a few days. I was utterly blown away by it. I think I went to see it with a girlfriend, and she suggested it. In fact, the memory's coming back now. She suggested we go to see this film, and I'd never heard of it. I didn't Die Hard, never heard of that. And Bruce Willis is some comedy actor in some silly TV series that I've never watched. So I went along not expecting to be impressed at all, and was absolutely blown away by the action sequences. I thought it had comedy moments, and it had emotional moments, and the tension and the direction and the action sequences were just incredible. And yeah, I went back to see it again on my own a couple of days later.
I'm not surprised, because actually there's so much to take in. It is actually, at the time, was breaking a few rules, such as duration. I mean, this is on for more than 2 hours, which I'm sure back then the theatre owners would have been annoyed, because, of course, that's loss of earnings, because movies should have been in around the 90 or 100 minute marks, and this is much longer. Now, for the handful of listeners who have not seen Die Hard, which I don't think is possible, let me remind you that this is about John McClane, a New York City cop who's making his way to Los Angeles to try and reunite himself with his wife, Holly Gennaro, who is working at the infamous Nakatomi Tower. And his plans to spend a lovely Christmas with his family are essentially thwarted by Hans Gruber and his band of nasty men.
And wasn't Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman, just one of the best villains in a film ever? I mean, he had that. It wasn't a very physical performance. It was more of it's just the delivery of his dialogue and the way he looked at the people. But honestly, he was so sinister and evil. An incredible performance. And Pascal, I love that sort of the action sequences. Obviously, John McClane manages to escape into the infrastructure of the building as the terrorists take over, and he effectively wages a one-man war against the terrorists, and he's climbing up elevator shafts and going through air conditioning ducts and that sort of thing. But he's always making wisecracks, but it never felt cheesy to me. It just felt like this is him. I've come to California, we'll go to the coast, have a few friends, have a few laughs, when he's being shot at and being blown up. And I just love that combination of the sinister villain, the action hero, the comedy, and then of course he creates a relationship with a cop on the outside, and they communicate with CB radios, and they haven't met each other, but they're supporting each other throughout the film. And this cop's on the outside and he's on the inside. And then, of course, at the end of the film, when they actually get together and realise, and they see each other for the first time, and they have this emotional moment. Again, the whole film to me had I just can't count the different ways that it blew me away.
Absolutely. And what is interesting is, through director John McTiernan, that's what he does best. I think he loves characters and character arcs and so on. And interestingly, the year before he was asked to work on Die Hard, he just worked on Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And legend has it that Arnold Schwarzenegger was considered for the role of John McClane, but John McTiernan was actually a little tired of that kind of style of hero movie. But I think he sensed as well that the 90s were approaching and you had to switch it a bit and have someone that was more a kind of normal guy that just caught up in something that he's doing his very best. And actually the character gets quite a beating, including stepping on broken glass and so on, which leads to all sort of and I think you're right, the wisecracks and one-liners is more because the character John McClane is just so fed up and annoyed and stressed and scared. It doesn't really come across as cheesy as maybe the early 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, even the character, his wife's character. There was the sort of office idiot, the one who was snorting cocaine. I can't remember what his name was. He comes to a sticky end during it. Even the minor characters in the film were real people and real characters. It's just such a great script.
It is. I didn't know this, but the research is actually based on a novel. I firmly believed, Roger, that it was actually a script that people can create from scratch. And the novel is from 1979 and actually been passed around Hollywood, including Clint Eastwood very nearly actually directed a version in the early 80s, but then got busy doing something else. And they also went through a fair amount of casting kind of duties to finally settle on Bruce Willis. You mentioned a moment ago that the guy wasn't really known. I think the year before he'd done, I'm going to say Blind Date with, who was the actress with him? Name escapes me now. I'm going to say Kim Basinger, but I'm wrong, I'm sure. But he was known even in France for Moonlightning, the series. So that led to actually some interesting kind of tension, because even the production company and distributors thought, we've got a guy that essentially is a TV actor. And in funny how time has moved on, because now working on TV is the best thing people can do. So when they looked at marketing the film, they only released actually posters with just the Nakatomi Tower blowing up and then some strap lines, and they took away the lead actor, which nowadays, looking back at Bruce Willis' career, seems incredible. And then
that may be one of the reasons why I didn't know about the film, or maybe I'd seen the poster before it was suggested we go to see it, and maybe I just thought, it's just a remake of The Towering Inferno or something like that.
Oh, and your action is absolutely right. So for me, said, they didn't have faith in him, bless him, which is not very nice, when you're the lead actor. Then, of course, when the movie started to work well, they very, very quickly went rushing around reprinting posters to then have his face. And then you have that very iconic look where he's looking through, I think, a threshold of a door, and it's cut with a tower. And then you've got, obviously, the text and so on. But what is interesting is, the marketing was very, very low-key, which, again, for us talking about it in 2020, seems incredible. But they released it in a few cinemas just to avoid embarrassment, and then it worked. And then quickly they kind of were chasing their tails, but in a way that was a bit late. And thank God for word of mouth.
Yeah, and of course there was some pretty good taglines, wasn't there?
There were. Which leads me on to a little request for you, Roger Edwards. Now, this movie was on the big screen, then VHS cassette, then you had multiple DVD releases, and each time they play with the taglines. And I think it should be, as we're approaching Christmas, I've got a Christmas wish for you. I'd love for you to take on that kind of voice of a man type style and read some of the most popular taglines that we use on the cover of the DVD versions. And we may even ask Tim, our editor, to add some dramatic music. Are you up for it?
Let's do it, Pascal. Okay, so deep voice. Here we go. So, he is alone, tired, and the only chance anyone has got. 12 terrorists, 1 cop. The odds are against John McClane. And that's the way he likes it. I love this one. 40 stories high, suspense, excitement and adventure on every level. And finally, an adventure that will blow you through the back wall of the theatre. and you know what? It did. I said it before. When I was at the theatre the first time, it did blow me through the back wall of the theatre. So much that I went back again and watched it a couple of days later.
So I was going to ask you, do you have copies of Die Hard in one of the many DVD releases and editions they've gone for.
Absolutely, we've definitely got a DVD release, and the DVD release has even got a branched version where you can actually watch it, and it'll add the deleted scenes back in.
Oh, so that must be that must be the 2003. Therefore, the 15th anniversary. Yeah, I think I've got that one.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've got a digital version as well in HD that I can watch either on iTunes or on Amazon or something like that.
The movie is known globally. There were some very interesting translation issues with the title because different territories, including France, Italy, Spain, and Russia, Die Hard doesn't really translate. I mean, there's something about the English language where you can be very direct and very to the point, which doesn't work so much with Latin languages. So in France, it was called the Trap of Crystal or Crystal Trap. It was called the Crystal Maze in some others, alluding to the broken glass and obviously how they're shooting through windows and that kind of things. But then obviously when they move on to Die Hard 2, 3, 4, 5, and it was no longer in the building, they got a bit caught up, but they carried on with the same title. What the hell? But one thing that stayed, no matter the language, is of course the infamous Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother. Which we can't say on this podcast for obvious reasons.
Only because
we're a bit of an Oedipus complex going on here. But of course, when they did the TV version, they changed the rude word to kimosabi. So it was Yippee-ki-yay, kimosabi. And I can remember when it first came on TV and they said Yippee-ki-yay, kimosabi. And we all went, no, that's not what they said. It actually said Yippee-ki-yay, mother. And I always get a bit annoyed when they do edits like that because to me, it just makes people then shout out what they've edited out. But hey.
So the initial releases internationally, they try and translate Yippee-ki-yay. But now, if you get a more recent print or more recent DVD, whilst the dialogue may be dubbed, the Yippee-ki-yay now is back originally. According to that special edition that you mentioned a moment ago, according to the interviews that John McTiernan and Bruce Willis gave, they had a bit of a back and forth whether it should be Yippee-ki-yay or Yippee-ki-yay, and I think Bruce Willis got his way and went for Yippee-ki-yay because I think he suggested that that's the way it's said in where it comes from, and I think that's the better version. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yippee-ki-yay. And of course, Yippee-ki-yay became the sort of one of the catchphrases from the series because he effectively says it in each film after that, usually at the moment when he's about to dispatch the main villain of the piece. It's always, in the second one, he blows the plane up and it's Yippee-ki-yay, and the third one, again, when he brings the helicopter down, it's almost like, you're toast, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it is a wonderful film, and one thing I'm going to say to you is, in terms of film marketing, please, let's take away that you've got to believe in yourself and in your lead actor. It feels criminal that, Bruce Willis was taken off, the posters and everything else for fear that, audience would not engage. But the other thing is, pay attention to your audience because when they kind of, grab something and it becomes, something that they could literally use for themselves, then you can go back to your content and improve upon it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And again, what I said before about having a face for radio. They didn't believe he had a face that would sell this film, but it became such a successful franchise, and there's even talk now, all these years later of a sixth film. Whether we'll see it, I don't know. Whether it'll be good, I don't know. But going back to that original launch in 1988, what an incredible film. We're just one of the best films of all time. I can't think how many times I've watched it. We pretty much watch it on Christmas Eve every year because it is a Christmas movie. As I said at the start, oh, the weather outside is frightful, dum-de-dum-de-dum, delightful, and all of that sort of thing.
I mean, it's kind of a conversion between High Noon and Scrooge, or a Christmas Carol in a way. It's just and it works well. And you've got to celebrate the work of the director, producers, and so on. It's also very well filmed. I will say that even though I like pretty much all of them, with maybe one exception, it is the one that where the cinematography, the way in which it's filmed, the use of light and so on, is at its best.
Yeah, that bit at the end, towards the end, when he basically jumps off the top of the tower, he ties a fire hose around his waist, and he jumps off the top of the tower just as the explosion goes off. And so you've got this massive explosion in the background. He's doing this jump. I think there might be a helicopter in there as well at some point. And he basically falls down the side of the building and then has to bash his way in through one of the windows. I mean, it was just breathtaking. Absolutely. And it's still, I as I say, I've lost count. I must have seen it 20, 30, maybe 40 times. But every time I watch it, that particular sequence, it's just, oh, my goodness, here we go.
Well, I'm so pleased that we went for this one, clearly, because you're a big fan. So we began, obviously, this film marketing segment review of Die Hard by suggesting that this is the best Christmas movie ever. We want your opinion and views on that. But just to leave you with something to take away, when obviously 20th Century Fox, who actually provided the building, Nakatomi Tower is obviously Fox's headquarters as well. So let's keep it in within the family. But when they released obviously the 15th anniversary DVD that you have, Roger, they did say during the press release, yes, we agree, it is the greatest Christmas story ever told. So...
So there you are. It is a Christmas movie.
So this brings me to the end of our recording for episode 17 of Two Geeks and Marketing Podcast. Once again, thank you for your wonderful support. Please leave comments, suggestions, and feedback in the usual places. Until the next one, please make sure that your marketing is done right. I was Pascal Fintoni, and he was Roger Edwards. Bye for now.